Hello and welcome to episode 256 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF. Man, week one is never what we expect it to be, right? There's guys that we think that are going to absolutely smash and they fall apart. There's guys that we weren't expecting. And then there's the guys that, Snoog and I have been telling you to buy all off season, and those guys hit, and they hit hard. Nobody better to talk about week one reactions than my main man, Snoog. How you doing today, brother?
Any Alvin Kamara 20-point game in a Texans W, I wake up feeling good. The morning coffee hit different. I got the vintage Kamara jersey on still.
I love it.
I'm ready to go. Let's jump into this. Gibbs also scored last night, and I made like $170. So
nice. And, I see so many posts about people just trying to prove they're right, prove they're wrong, whatever's going on here. But like when we're talking about a podcast like ours, where we literally have been saying it for months, buy Alvin Kamara, buy Joe Mixon on the cheap. Both of these guys look like prime versions of themselves. I mean, we're going to go game by game, but I want to talk about these two guys first. Is Joe Mixon, 30 carries, 130 plus yards, involved in the passing game. And it's like, Snoog, a lot of people really started to downgrade him there towards the end, thinking, oh, it was that Bengals offense that propped him up. Oh, it's all about, how much usage he gets. And man, he got prime usage, just like our guy Marty. He put, "What's up, fellas? We live." Love when you guys are following us on YouTube, when you guys, get involved with the show, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Twitter. Make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button on the YouTube page. Shock, Snoog. We've gone from 30 to 1,400 subscribers literally in 2 months. So, I mean, you guys, I love the outpouring that you guys have been giving us. But Joe Mixon, man, this is a top 12 running back as long as he's healthy. This is just phenomenal usage and an absolutely amazing offense. And we might as well start with this Texans game first. I'm stoked.
yeah, exactly. And with Joe Mixon, we always said, okay, even if he is a little bit washed, what are we looking for with a guy like Joe Mixon? We're looking for a workhorse volume. He joins a team that couldn't run the ball for shit last year, fourth last in yards per carry. They literally didn't have 1,000-yard rusher. They signed Joe Mixon to this big contract, a guy that we knew could come in, be that workhorse. He could catch 40, 50 passes. He looks completely different than I think he ever has looked. He looked like he was very juiced up, burst was
rejuvenated.
Back.
That's the word, man.
I think the Bengals, that out of shotgun crap that they were using him with was just not his game style. The Texans were getting him downhill, under center, off tackle, zone run schemes. Bobby Slowick was in his bag dialing up those zone run schemes last night. I think that fits Joe Mixon's play style a little bit better because he's got some shift to him. He's got pretty good vision. So I just think he's going to be a top 12 guy moving forward, just because you can guarantee a touchdown a week. You can guarantee 15 and 20 catches, and they're going to win a lot of games. So they're going to utilize that run game.
Yeah, I absolutely love this. We got Jake Diana says best accounts on X. Love to see that. My man, I made 2 trades in the last month where I traded Jonathan Taylor for Joe Mixon and what looked like mid-first. And I got laughed out of the room on both of them. They're like, "Dad, what you doing? This doesn't make any sense." You saw on the other side of the ball, Jonathan Taylor did struggle to run the ball. He's going to be just fine. But when you get those production level running backs like an Alvin Kamara, like a Joe Mixon, and then you get that first on top, again, we keep talking about that's how winning is done. Honestly, you talk about next year and that pick becomes Ollie Gordon. That pick becomes, Junty, who absolutely dominated again this week. This is how you're going to do it. This is how you do sustainability. The rest of this offense, I mean, the Texans are going to just blow up. I mean, this was a future. I said, Thursday night, Mahomes versus Lamar, absolutely sexy, right? That's what we're looking at. You have that elite quarterback, then you have that rushing quarterback who just puts up crazy numbers. And that's what we had in this Sunday matchup. I mean, CJ Stroud is going to be that elite winning quarterback. But on the other side of the ball, Anthony Richardson is going to be a Lamar Jackson. Anthony Richardson, finished in the top 5. He had 220 plus passing yards. Very ugly. It was 9 for 19, very inefficient, but threw some beautiful passes that, only 3 or 4 guys in the league can make. Rushed for another 50 yards, ran for another, touchdown. That's 31 fantasy points. If you play in PPC, it's even more than that. I mean, Anthony Richardson, as long as he's healthy, is what we talked about. He's going to be wildly inefficient at times. He's going to be early Josh Allen. He's going to run the ball. He's going to be a lock for 50 rushing yards. I mean, it's a set it and forget it top 5 guy. And Stroud on the other side is going to be extremely efficient. He's going to throw to 3 elite level wide receivers. We saw Stephon Diggs with 2 touchdowns. We saw Nico Collins as that number 1 alpha with up over 100 yards. And Tank Dell's going to get involved. I mean, this is just going to be 2 extremely fun offenses, but very different styles. You know what I mean? Like Michael Pittman didn't do anything. Adonai Mitchell didn't really show up. They had the deep ball to Pierce, but very contrasting styles, but 2 elite level quarterbacks. I have moved Anthony Richardson into the same tier as CJ Stroud, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts. I feel like your time to buy Anthony Richardson just ended. Your time to buy CJ Stroud has already been over. These guys are going to be fantastic.
I tell you, watching that game was just the fact that, like, with Anthony Richardson, he looks so bad, and then he looks like he's the best player you've ever seen in your life. Like, there are so many plays that
that's early Josh Allen.
He should have threw like 3 or 4 picks yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even. They had like multiple drop passes. The Texans defense. They had plays where they had their back turned, where it literally hit Shair square in the back of the nameplate, and he could have just turned around and picked it. It was literally to nobody. Like, and then he just 70-yard off his back foot touchdown on blown coverage.
Yeah.
The Texans D looked horrible. I'm gonna be just flat out honest and not biased. They looked terrible yesterday. They were great against stuffing Jonathan Taylor and against the run game, but their secondary was just blown coverage after blown coverage.
That's going to be even better.
Richardson
that was my worry.
Capitalized on it.
That was my worry for Stroud, is the defense was just going to be just good enough that they were not going to be able to put up high points and be in a lot of shootouts.
They're supposed to be a top 5 defense.
Yeah.
They brought in all these elite pass rushers. Shair was the leading tackle guy last year for the Titans. Like, and then they just so young, that secondary, and they just.
Let's transition from 2 sophomores who are trending towards elite to talking about these rookie quarterbacks a little bit. The Roll 07 says, I'm not panicking on Caleb. What do you think? So, Caleb Williams' first game was atrocious. It was rough. It was not what I was expecting. You know what I mean? Like, I could expect a game where you're looking at, 250 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, but I mean, this was really low. This was like, now the nice thing is I trust the talent. I trust what you and I have seen. I trust that he is going to be, has elite level weaponry, that he is someone that is going to bounce back. The best part for me is they won this game, right? So now he gets all those jitters out of the way. He gets all that, I got to win game 1. That's off the back. But now you get into a spot where I'm buying Caleb Williams if I can, if anybody's panicking after 1 game, because most of the time we just expect rookie quarterbacks to just come in and do well. But you look at last year, all 3, and you can't sell short Jaden Daniels, though. Jaden Daniels ran like crazy. Top 3 quarterback this week.
Garbage time rushing.
Yeah, exactly. But
it's going to be like that all year.
Football. It's fantasy football. It doesn't matter. But yeah, talk to me a little bit about Caleb Williams. What's up, Pat? Pat put dudes. What's up? I love it. You guys just keep coming out more and more. Like the Patreon, Pat's in the Patreon. Like, that's been blowing up. You guys know that's the place to get your sit starts. That's the place to really get your information. Like other guys in here, Jay Spanny, he's jumping in. Happy Monday, fellas. Time to smash accept. Guys, this is the part of the year where we're going to start telling you who to buy, when to sell, all these things that are really going to put you over the top. I'm buying on Caleb Williams now if anybody's hitting the panic button. I can't see anybody hitting it week 1, but Twitter's ablaze of it, like saying, oh, we got a bust here. This isn't going to happen. Caleb Williams, talk to me a little bit.
I think he's fine. I mean, if you look at Stroud's first game last year, if you look at like most first-round quarterbacks' first game, especially if they're not sitting, it's rough. I mean, the Titans' defense is no joke. They got one of the middle of the pack, maybe a slightly better defenses. They brought in Snead. They got Jeffrey Simmons there. They got a lot of players there on defense that can produce and can be good veteran players that are going to give a rookie a tough time. I think he's fine. I mean, I don't like to think anything of rookies unless they do really good week 1. Like, if a rookie has a bad week 1, it's like, okay, move past it. It's a rookie. It's going to take time.
The game speed's faster. That's what everybody says.
It's not even that, though. It all matters on the game script, if the team's winning, what happens. Like if that's, like, Caleb did bad, so of course Rome's going to do bad. Like, that's just how it's going to go.
Of course,
Marvin Harrison Jr. was 50 yards away from having a 50-yard touchdown and everybody talking about how he's the best wide receiver of all time. So it's if you don't watch the game and you just box score these rookies, then yeah, you'll overreact. But if you really watch, like Worthy, Brian Thomas Jr., they were involved. They're those guys. Like Rome's not that guy yet for the Bears. Marv should be that guy, but yeah, I don't like to worry about anything. And especially for all the rookie running backs, like this running back class wasn't that great. We didn't like Jalen Wright was a scratch. Like these guys are scratches because they're day 2 running backs behind running back like Kyron, Blake Corum. Like, yeah, no one really thought Corum was gonna be 50% of the touches in week 1. Maybe I thought he was gonna be like 20-30% and ease his way in. And maybe like this year it was gonna be like 70-30, 65-35. I still believe in that. I still think that will happen. But week 1, it's like you think they're going to play a rookie in a primetime game where they literally need to win this game, and they lost.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, Caleb Williams, 14 for 29 for under 100 yards is very eye-opening. It was also, the running back committee. I was really, I think we're just going to kind of scrap what the Bears were going to do there. I mean, they clearly – Keenan got targeted 11 times, DJ Moore 8 times. Those guys are going to eat. I think they're going to continue to improve. DeAndre Swift, only 10 carries, wasn't not really involved too much in the passing game. So, we're going to kind of just take this with a grain of salt for the Bears. On the Titans side of the ball, Will Levis, again, doing Will Levis type things, right? Makes a beautiful touchdown pass. 2 horrible looking interceptions that really held them back. What really sticks out to me, though, is Tony Pollard looked like he's back, right? He looked like what he was a year and a half ago, where he's 16 for 82 yards, 5.1 yards per carry, got the touchdown there. Tajay Spears, 4 receptions. Tony Pollard, 3 receptions. I think these guys are going to be heavily involved, in the passing game as much as Will Levis can keep them afloat. The nice thing about Will Levis, he did, provide 36 rushing yards for a little bit of a floor. He's a little bit more of a worry than obviously what Caleb is, but I think this offense is going to have some big games. They're going to have some games like this. And this game was, they made a lot of poor plays. They've made a lot of turnovers, really set themselves back. I really like what I saw. And we're going to continue with the rookie theme is what Jaden Daniels was able to do. So, I mean, he did not press, even though they were down. You had said it was garbage time, and it really was. But like if you look at it, he was still 17 to 24 passing.
I'm not taking that away from him. He looked good.
No, and that's he had so much more poise than what Caleb did. Like he literally was back there, 17 to 24. He's going to be a highly accurate quarterback. The 20 carries, Snoop, that's just not sustainable. Or 16 carries, 88 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. That scares me. I would love to see a Kyler Murray 8 to 10 carries for 60-yard kind of deal. 16 carries worries me a little bit, but 17 to 24 for 188, didn't force the ball. I think he's going to be that guy that he's going to I think there's an area where he could rise above Caleb Williams in value year 1, but he's not going to have that same sustainability. The offense in general, though, outside of Jaden Daniels was worrisome. Robinson had the touchdown. Terry McLaurin, only 2 receptions. I think Austin Eckler led the team in receptions with 4. So, I mean, the Commanders' offense.
Austin looked good.
Yeah. I think the team is
with him.
The team's really going to be predicated on the run, and they're going to try to keep the ball for ball security. On the other side, dude, Baker Mayfield, honestly, Baker Mayfield looks like what the Browns wanted Deshaun Watson to look like, right? I mean, Baker Mayfield, 3 touchdowns. Whoever plays Washington, roll them out. Roll it. What they gave up the most yards and most touchdowns last year. Baker made them look bad. But my biggest takeaway on the Bucs side of the ball, we said Chris Godwin was going to be a top 15 wide receiver when he's in the slot year after year, right? 8 targets, 8 receptions, 83 yards, and a touchdown. This is a guy that is going to be a top 15 to 20 wide receiver.
He really had a game like that, huh? I saw him score. I didn't even peep him. I was scooping him up for seconds in so many leagues where I just needed a flex. I was like, all right, give me him.
He's right there. I mean, Mike Evans did Mike Evans things. I mean, we knew that was going to happen. He's going to torch that secondary. But Mike Evans is, both these guys are buy lows. And I think Baker Mayfield, we got to put a little bit more respect on his name as far as, last year he was QB 12. He picked up right where he left off. You know what I mean? And I think they're going to be in some shootouts where this is going to be a fun offense.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Bucks, I mean, we saw Bucky Irving outrush Rachaad White. I mean, we saw the same thing with Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne. Like, don't look too much into stuff like that yet. If it's week 4 and it's still happening, then it's time to panic on these guys. But, I mean, Rachaad White's just a guy that's going to get 6 to 7 receptions. Baker Mayfield's a dump-off king. Even if Bucky does take over the role, Bucky's not a workhorse. Bucky's not this super elite rusher. Like, Bucky Irving's a handcuff still to me because Rachaad White's going to get all the valuable work. He's the bigger guy. He's going to get the goal line work and the receiving work. That's where fantasy points come. Bucky Irving's not getting 25 carries. It's just not happening. So don't overreact with Bucky Irving.
Yeah, if you can get a second for Bucky Irving.
Mike Evans, stud. We knew it. Godwin, gets up in value. Baker Mayfield, exactly what we expected. Just a solid guy.
Yeah. I said it in the offseason.
Jalen McMillan better than Jalen Polk. I stood on that. I stand on business. I ain't a biased Pats fan. Jalen McMillan's better than Jalen Polk.
He had a nice 32-yard touchdown reception there. Back to your Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. I mean, Rachaad White is he's a light version of Alvin Kamara. I mean, he's 6 receptions, 75 yards, not all that efficient in between the tackles. But Bucky Irving got his carries later in the game. You know, I don't think he's a huge risk of taking away Rachaad White's value overall. Even if he's getting 9 carries to Rachaad White's 15, Bucky Irving had 2 catches for 14. Rachaad had 6 for 75. You know, with a big 32-yard reception. Rachaad White isn't going anywhere. If you can use this to buy on the cheap, I'm perfectly fine with that. You know, like I think that puts you into that next area. Yeah. Sticking with let's move to the game last night. That game was fun. All right. So we have Cooper Kupp returning to form, 21 targets. Now I know, if Puka Nacua doesn't go down with a knee injury, I don't think that's what we're going to see.
I think he still gets 15, 16.
I think we see both of them get double digits for sure.
It was the Kupp show, even with Puka on the field.
Yeah, well,
Puka had 2, but Kupp had 6 receptions already, and I was just shocked. What is happening?
So he has returned to form. I mean, 13 catches, 105 yards with the touchdown, top 5 numbers while Puka's out. I mean, I think we were saying to buy Cooper Kupp on the cheap. I don't think you can do that anymore. I think he's going back to first round type value.
You paying that?
No, not unless I'm a smash contender. See, here's the thing: is Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, all those guys that we were saying buy in the offseason for seconds plus. Once you get in season, if you're a contender, it's going to cost you that late first. You're giving up that late first. And I mean, the worry is he hasn't stayed healthy. So I don't want to fully commit right now. That's where if I can get an insulated trade where I'm trading down off of a wide receiver that I don't necessarily believe as much
like a Michael Pittman, one of those.
Yeah, even for me, T Higgins. So I'm trading down because I feel like we're going to see a lot of T Higgins scratches based off of the injuries. You know what I mean? And I know those kind of guys where I might believe a little bit more in Pittman, you believe a little bit more in T Higgins, but whoever you want to move off of that area, if you can move down to Cooper Kupp plus, get that insulated trade, he is someone that's going to put up top 5 numbers as long as Puka's out. And top 12 once Puka comes back. So Puka on the other side, we were low-key advocating, selling in the offseason, but now we have an injury there. So now you just got to hold. People are saying, what do I do with Puka? I mean, you can't.
I hate
talking trash on there.
I hate seeing the injuries, especially with a guy like Puka, just a really, really likable guy just as a player. So it's stinks there. I don't think it's anything too serious. So if you have him, don't panic. There is maybe a decent little buy window on him, but he's already priced really high where it's just I'm probably either not owning him and just rooting for him as a player, or I'm tearing off and trying to get AJ Brown for him or one of those guys just straight up. But I put out a tweet before the season starts that I just thought Cooper Kupp was a way better redraft value because you could get him 1 to 2 rounds later, and I still stand on that. So I kind of wish Puka didn't get hurt because I really wanted to see how that played out with those 2 in there. And of course, I have a lot of Matt Stafford because he's so cheap. He's another contender smash in those dynasty leagues where I'm playing in 6-point passing formats. But he still did pretty good. He had man. Let's talk about Matt Stafford, Dad, because now I'm thinking about it. He has some of the craziest arm talent and playmaking abilities for a quarterback at his age. He's like a mini Rodgers. He had multiple no-look passes. It was that last one to Demarcus Robinson where it was pressure in the face, hand in the face, looking at the linebacker this way, and just throws it right into the comeback route, into the soft spot of the zone where there was 2 defenders right in his arms. He wasn't even looking over there. It's like he knew that play in his head, practiced it, felt it, knew it, literally put that throw right on the money, exactly where it needed to be at the right time without even looking. And I was like, this guy is incredible, man. He's a Hall of Famer. So
I love Matthew Stafford. I think, the 2021 of almost 5,000 yards and 41 touchdowns is out the window. But you look at, he's been crazy efficient with yards, but the touchdowns haven't been there. Even last year, I mean, almost 4,000 yards. Yeah, only 3,965 yards, but only 24 touchdowns. And yesterday he did it again, 317 yards and 1 touchdown. Like once they get in the red zone, Kyren Williams, who, man, he saw 90% of the offensive snaps. I think this is your extreme buy low on Blake Corum, because people are going to be like, oh, man, Ronnie Rivers was getting more play. You know what I mean? Like, go out there and buy him. I think Kyren Williams, 18 for 50 is about as inefficient as you get, but that Lions defensive line is phenomenal. 2.8 yards per carry, but he was still involved in the passing game with 3 receptions. Kyron's going to be a low-key RB1 all season as long as he stays healthy. And I think if there were an injury to happen, it's going to be Blake Corum. It's not going to be Ronnie Rivers. They just wanted to go out there in a big-time first game, make sure they had the right pass protection, make sure they took care of Stafford. On the other side of the ball, we knew it was going to happen, right? We knew it was going to be back to Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. The splits with the hamstring injury were going to be, not what we wanted Jahmyr Gibbs to be at the end of the season last year. But I think this is what we're going to see. David Montgomery, 17 carries, 91 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, had that game-winning touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs, 11 carries, 40 rushing yards, 4 receptions, 34 receiving, and the touchdown. And they're both relevant, right? Like, people want to downplay David Montgomery. David Montgomery is an RB2 that you can flex every single week because he's cheap. I've been buying him all offseason for late seconds plus, throwing in some of these rookies.
If he doesn't score a touchdown, he's nothing. Like, he puts up 8 points.
I mean, it's like in PPC, he was fine. He had the 91 yards and they had 17 touchdowns. But you're right, our 17 carries. But he scores double-digit touchdowns. Like, he's a lock.
I put money. It's funny because, like, obviously I'm such a big Gibbs guy. So this is how last night went for me. I put $5 on Jahmyr Gibbs' first touchdown with the boost, made 75.
Yeah.
I put 10 on Cooper Kupp next touchdown score during the game. I think it was 4th touchdown score, and I made 120. And I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Goes in OT, right before OT. I'm like, I'm feeling like this is how it's going to go. Lions are going to get the ball. They're going to march down the field, and it's going to be a David Montgomery touchdown. Threw 5 on it, made 45, and I was like, I've never rooted for David Montgomery in my life as a player, like as for fantasy, and I just did. And it was funny because like Gibbs was on the field a couple times, and I was like, all right, is Gibbs going to get the ball right here and score and mess me up, and then I'm going to be mad even though Gibbs is a guy that like I literally is one of my favorite players. But I want everyone that is listening to really pay attention to the way the game goes for the Lions, and that is exactly how they will determine if it's Jahmyr Gibbs or David Montgomery. The start of the game, it's always David Montgomery. He's the tone setter. They bash him between the tackles. They tire out the defense. And then that middle stretch where it's like that second through the third quarter, you were seeing a ton of Gibbs. I know the drives kept dying. They were going 3 and out or whatever during that middle stretch, but it was Gibbs. They're going to tire that defense down, and then it's going to be Gibbs' speed tearing them apart. And then to close out the game, if they're winning, it's David Montgomery. If they're losing, it's Jahmyr Gibbs. So I think Gibbs gets a lot of that valuable, like, second through the fourth quarter touches. And David Montgomery's just that first quarter tone setter, fourth quarter closer. So keep an eye on that. That's something that a lot of people don't pay attention to. They just look at the splits and they don't look at the game script or anything like that. But that's one thing I've paid attention to because I watch every Lions game. And keep an eye on that because if there's games you think the Lions are going to blow the team out, then you're probably going to see more Dave Montgomery.
Yeah, because there's going to be multiple 2-touchdown David Montgomery games where he just, grinds them down. And I think it's really smart on the Lions, perhaps. They know what Jahmyr Gibbs is. They know what that's going to happen. It's almost, to me, it's like early LaDainian Tomlinson, where he was playing behind, where he was that guy that, depending on where the game script went, if they really needed it, they had him in there. But if they were doing it, oh man, I got to think of who that was back in the day. I'll look that up. But there was that running back ahead of him where it was like, that's just what they ended up doing. That's how the Chargers won their thing. And that's why I think the Lions are ultimately smart and going to be very beneficial for that in the long term. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's going to be fine. People are saying, hey, what do I do with him? You don't. But Jameson Williams was very involved in this game. Like, he ended up looking more like that guy that we saw at Alabama. We have not seen it. He's looked lost at times. He's looked at like a decoy, but it looked like the Lions were very intentional on trying to get him involved. Are you buying Jameson Williams? Because I think there's a real world scenario where his value, right now it's at 209, 210, where that definitely goes up in value.
He was a guy I always liked as a player, but I didn't like him for fantasy at all. I just never saw that panning out. But once I saw the Lions play last year and what they could really elevate to and how their game was schemed and their offensive success, then the pieces started coming together for me where it's like, okay, if J-Mo can put it all together and be that Xavier Worthy, be that Deshaun Jackson, be that George Pickens, that Brandon Ayuk, that Jalen Waddle, that hyper-efficient guy that can get 70 catches for 1,000+ yards and score a couple touchdowns, he'll pay off at value. And I think he can be that.
He's on the way, man.
If he stays healthy, he could be that. Because when their defenses are on that football team, their number one thing, stop Amon-Ra St. Brown, stop the run game with Jahmyr Gibbs, Montgomery, and then worry about Sam Laporta. You got to worry about the guy that has 4.2 speed that's going to just gash you down the middle every single time. So I think that Jameson Williams is the guy that is going to be strong flex play with a ton of upside. So if you can get him for a second, I'll pay that. I'm not paying a first for him, but I'll pay a second for him all day in Dynasty.
Reynolds out of the way, making J-Mo the clear wide receiver 2, 9 targets, 5 receptions, 121 yards and a touchdown.
9 targets?
He had 9 targets. I know, this is like, you watch the game and you're like, oh man, he looked real good. Then you start to look at the stats and put together the entire picture. It's like, dude, 9 targets. Then he had that rushing, carry for 13 yards. I think J-Mo's that perfect guy to get an insulated trade off of a guy that's worth a late first and get yourself, the opposite. If you're trying to contend, if you're trying to rebuild, you trade a Cooper Kupp and a second for J-Mo and a first, and that's how you end up getting more value in that sense, is just making sure you're going after a guy where supremely talented. So let's see how it pans out the rest of the way. All right, moving on to our next game. Ugly game, the Cowboys versus the Browns. Couple of small takeaways from here. I mean, Dak's going to be fine. Dak got the contract. CD's going to be fine. That's the low point you're going to see for both of them. And we knew that
Brown, the best defense in the second, third best defense.
Browns defense is legit. Low key, Brandon Cooks is going to be I think he's going to have some acceptable weeks at your flex play. 7 targets, 40 receptions, 40 yards and a touchdown. On the other side of the ball, Deshaun Watson looked absolutely horrible. Killed Amari Cooper. Now, he did have a beautiful deep ball to Amari that he dropped, which would have really saved Amari's day. But for me, the biggest takeaway is Jerome Ford with this kind of usage, just locked and loaded, cheapest running back in fantasy, the guy that you got to buy. Pierre Strong only had 2 carries. Ford, 12 carries, 44 yards with a touchdown. But then Snoog, he had 7 targets for 6 receptions in slop time. So he's either, if the Browns are winning, he's going to be the guy that gets 20+ carries. If the Browns are losing, he's staying on the field and he's going to get 6-7 targets. Jerome Ford is the cheapest RB2 in Dynasty right now. You could still buy him for, a third plus or a late second. And I'm perfectly there, because even when Nick Chubb comes back in week 8, I think they're going to take time to ease him in. And I think Jerome Ford is just a really nice, he's that guy that you want just to get you into week 8 where you're 6-2.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you mentioned that, because if you just look at when Nick Chubb comes back, I think that offense is much better. And Amari Cooper, put up an absolute dud. I think that it's week 1. Just if you just look at all the wideouts that just put up absolute duds, like, it's not going to be like that all year. I promise you. So don't overreact. If you have some of these guys in your fantasy lineup, it's a bad week, move past it. Like, just because it happens on week 1 doesn't mean it's the end of the world. But
we're going to do a show on that.
We're going to do a show on all that. But one thing I do want to highlight, especially for you Dynasty listeners, Jake Ferguson looks like he's down for the count with that knee injury. Go pick up Luke Schoonmaker in all your leagues. 2nd round pick from Michigan. Is he going to be good? Probably not, but he's free. And he's on your waiver wire. So go scoop him up right now, because he's going to be the starting tight end there for the Dallas Cowboys. So opportunity for him.
This is why some of you guys are just listening to us for the first time in fantasy. If you guys aren't getting into Dynasty, this is where it's so much more fun because we're making these trades. We're getting ourselves into position for these. I know Snoop did really well. I went 17-3 my first week, and even despite a lot of these things where it was like, yeah, Kincaid killed me on some and Marvin Harrison, but all these other guys that we've been picking up along the way really kind of filled in there. Snoop, I want to talk about that next because our guy LJ Brockington asked thoughts on Dalton Kincaid. So let's go to that Bills-Cardinals game. We knew it was going to be a shootout. We knew it was going to be in that 60-plus point range. Josh Allen only completed 2 passes, going into almost halftime. And then I got all these messages of like, Dad, why do you have him as your dynasty QB1? Because he's Josh freaking Allen, all right? He's going to do everything for this offense. It's going to take some time for these other guys to kind of fill in. I was very worried about Dalton Kincaid's usage. Khalil Shakir got his and Keon got involved. Josh Allen's going to be – he doesn't have to worry about throwing to a diva, Stephon Diggs. He's going to spread the ball around. He looked fantastic in that second half. He's going to be unstoppable with the run, and I think Josh Allen stays as that QB1. But, man, Dalton Kincaid really, really just – I know it's week 1, but, like, the Cardinals last year were top 3 against the tight end. I get that. But I expected at least like a 6 for 52 type dud, not what he ended up doing. I'm buying the dip wherever I can. I think if I can, get him on the cheap, I will. But I don't think people are going to sell yet.
Well, if you look at all the elite tight ends, they stayed at home. They didn't want to show up.
No, none of them.
Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Sam Laporta put up like 10. Trey McBride put up like 8. Like Evan Ingram put up 1.
McBride on the other side of the ball. I mean, he had 29% target share, but still.
Can we talk about Evan Ingram? He put up 1. That's crazy.
Hey, we're staying on tight ends. You know who's going to be the tight end 1 in a couple of weeks?
Brock Bowers.
Brock Bowers.
He's going.
40 snaps.
Dynasty tight end 1, baby. Yes, sir.
I know we're so excited. We're just bouncing around topics because this is what we do. But like Brock Bowers, 6 catches, 58 yards. He led them in target share. He led them in targets, and he was only on the field for 40 snaps. That's going to increase. The amount of times that he's in line blocking is going to decrease. He is going to, unfortunately for Devontae Adams, is going to eat in completely to there. And I don't think Gardner Minshew can support both of them. Brock Bowers is on his way up.
Yeah, and I'm so happy because I feel like I analyzed that situation pretty good for how it's going to work out. It was going to be Adams getting double teamed and getting all the show. And then Gardner Minshew can't throw the ball past 20 yards, and it's going to be Brock Bowers underneath,
Mm-hmm.
and that's exactly what it was. We saw a couple plays he made downfield, which was cool as well. So,
yeah,
Jacoby Myers is this, like, has a big week and then disappears for 7 weeks. During those 7 weeks is when Brock Bowers is going to cement himself. So, just stay tuned with that as well. Keep an eye on it. It's going to be the Devontae Adams, Brock Bowers show.
But
Gardner's still not a startable quarterback unless it's 6-point passing, and you need him for a super flex league. But
I think there's a real world scenario where like he could become the tight end 1 in Dynasty by week 6 if he keeps playing like this. Now, even Laporta didn't have a good game. Like I think I'll buy the dip on all these tight ends because they were fantastic last year. They're going to be fantastic. It's a 1 week type scenario where I think you can go out there and kick the tires on Kincaid, see what you can get. Mark Andrews is the interesting one. So, I mean, I see a lot of people really being down on – you look at the amount of targets, you look at the amount of routes run, it was very similar. But, man, Isaiah Likely we have to talk about. I bought him the other day. I want to get your opinion here. I gave up my 25-second, which is likely late, Greg Dulcich, and a 25 third for Isaiah Likely and a guy's 25 third, which is likely early. And then I got Tyler Conklin thrown in, who, they're talking about Conklin is kind of like going to be that low-key Robert Tonyan for Aaron Rodgers. Like he's been targeting him in the red zone, but I'm buying Isaiah Likely. Like before we were talking about him as he's the tight end handcuff. There are no other ones. It was just him. But you look at what he's been able to do in his last 6 games versus what Mark Andrews is there. And I'm not discrediting Mark Andrews. I think Mark Andrews is a buy in Dynasty because he's going to be locked and loaded top 6 to 8 tight end. But I think Isaiah Likely is here to stay now. I think you buy low and then we get into a scenario where he's just 23 years old. We could have 2 really solid tight ends here where you want both of them on this team.
Yeah, I mean, Likely's a beast, dude. It's cool because he played So this private school like 15, 20 minutes from my house where one of my good friends went there, and he played against Isaiah Likely all through
Hmm.
college because he went to Everett High School, and he was in all through high school. And I went to a game my sophomore year, and they were playing Central Catholic, which is the school, and Isaiah Likely had like 3 catches for like 200 yards in the first like 2 quarters, and it was every single one was a touchdown.
Hmm.
And I was literally like, dude, this guy is literally like the best player I've ever seen. He used to be a wideout, and he just dominated
Yeah.
at Coastal. He's
Well,
exactly what fits that Ravens style. Like a guy you can move around, get him the ball.
mhm.
He's fun. He's gadgety. I think Mark Andrews it was always overvalued a little bit. Like I don't think he should have been that much valued over Kittle. I don't think he should have been that much valued over guys like Kelsey and stuff in Dynasty. I don't know if he's just shook from that injury or I think he got in a car accident. Maybe it's just
Yeah.
he's easing his way back into things. But
Well, if you watch the game closely, he was the extra left tackle. Like that
yeah,
offensive, the Chiefs were all over it. He was on the
yeah,
line blocking quite a bit. I think the next part we got to like look at, and Zay Flowers looked great. I mean, I think this offense is going to be finally. I think Isaiah Likely they realized Rashad Bateman's trash. Sorry, and for you guys that loved him coming out of college, he's just not going to be a thing. Likely's going to be on the field. It's going to be those three guys dominating targets and more 12 personnel. But this at the roll 7, he's asking again. Isaiah Likely, J-Mo, and a third or Mark Andrews. If you asked me this in the offseason, I would have laughed out loud.
yeah.
I think I might take that. I don't know. Am I crazy?
If it's tight end premium, I'm riding Mark Andrews and seeing where it takes me.
If I'm rebuilding, and you tell me
If I'm rebuilding, I didn't. Yeah,
if it's a second, I'd do it.
I would make that a second, and
Even a 2-3 swap, and I would do it. I love those kind of questions.
What do you think about Derrick Henry? Let's talk about him because a lot of like the big analysts were just saying like he's terrible and he's not good. All of a sudden,
I watched
he's
every
score
single play of that
touchdowns.
game. He did not mesh with the offensive line, right? It didn't look like he was prime Derrick Henry.
It looked like a chemistry thing.
Exactly. It's going to take time. You know what I mean? Just like we're talking about with the quarterbacks, it's going to take time to just understand how his offensive line works, how he incorporates in there with Lamar Jackson. Because let's be honest, he's used to just taking a straight handoff. Lamar Jackson, a lot of times we're going to have we're going to have a lot of different options here to see how things go. So it's going to take some time. He is going to score 15 plus touchdowns, period. If you can buy low on Derrick Henry, where someone that was a lot of times you can look at this Snoog where there's a guy that's holding on to Derrick Henry because he's rebuilding, right? He's like, oh, I'm going to sell him for a first. But then he sees a disappointing week 1, and then you go in there and offer a pair of seconds and you steal Derrick Henry. Because I think Derrick Henry is going to score 15 plus touchdowns. He's going to rush for 100 yards a game. I think that first game, get those jitters out of the way, get that mesh down. And I think by the time we get to week 3, week 4, we're going to see prime Derrick Henry. Like he did not look slow. That's not what my worry was. He looked a little hesitant working with that offensive line. So for me, that's a difference, right? Like you can see, when you watch Leonard Fournette that final season, you're like, dude looks slow. Like this is not working.
Cooked, yeah.
You know what I mean? But like Cook. Derrick Henry is not cooked. He is not cooked. He's perfectly fine. Dude takes care of himself. I think he's going to be a top 12 running back rest of the way.
Yeah, I think Derrick Henry. If you look at Kamara, James Conner, they've been they've been on that team. They've been playing with those guys. Yeah, Kamara got a new offensive coordinator for the good, right? We'll get into that game in a little bit. We'll talk about the Saints in a little bit, but Joe Mixon came to a better situation for the better, right? Like this scheme is built around his strength. It's not here. We're gonna go out of shotgun and give you inside zones up the middle every single play like the Bengals did. Like it's. We're going to fit this run scheme, zone run scheme. We're going to fit your skill set. I think for Derrick Henry, it was definitely going to take some getting used to, but let's not take into or forget that the Chiefs' defense is phenomenal, especially against the run. They're phenomenal about shutting it down the elite players on the other team. They shut down Mark Andrews. They shut down Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had some good plays where I was like, okay, there's Derrick Henry. And then he had some plays where it's like, there's nothing there. And when there's nothing there, he's probably not going to really do much. But I think I think he's going to be like a week 7 through championship winner. Like I think it's going to take him a little bit, like you said. But that's the cool thing about it is, like look at Isaiah Pacheco. He was bad too. Like he was very inefficient. Wasn't as good as we thought he would be. Tough defenses on both sides of the ball, and that's just how it's going to be. Week 1.
I'm buying Pacheco wherever I can. That 19 touches I know he only had 54 yards, but in PPC, that's 19 points. Like he's going to score crazy amounts of touchdowns.
I'm not going to own a share of them. I just
I-
buy Kamara or Mixon or James Conner
or J.K. Dobbins. Holy
I'm not paying
Dude,
a first plus for Isaiah Pacheco.
We're just going to stick with no. I was paying second plus. I'm not paying a first.
Now it's going to be a first though.
Let's before we jump into Kamara, let's just look at holy cow. J.K. Dobbins, 10 carries, 135 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 receptions. And then Gus Edwards saw 11 carries for only 41 yards, something like that. So, man, I was like, J.K. Dobbins, I loved coming out of college. He's someone that I loved when he was with the Ravens. He had those opportunities to moving from new Ravens to old Ravens. The writing should have been on the wall where it's like he's going to that hardball system that he already knows. He's already in that area. That's why they went and got him and Gus. And the offense, was not pretty at all. Justin Herbert just did what he had to do. But, J.K. Dobbins was a star. Like people we're trying to, what are we paying to get him? Are we trusting this, that he has always been a guy that has been in that, his rookie year, 6.8 yards per carry. You know what I mean? And he's always been that guy that just gets 100 touches. And then he has in that crazy efficient Devon A-Chain type 6 to 7 yards per carry. This was 13.5 yards per carry. And he just looked unbelievable. What are we doing with J.K. Dobbins? Like if I'm rebuilding and I have J.K. Dobbins, I am pairing him in a second for a first, and I'm just trying to get out because he's just been a walking, infirmary. Like he's just hurt all the time. Yeah. So that's been my biggest question is, Dad, J.K. Dobbins blew up. What do we do? And for me, it's a process over results of like, he's just had so many injuries. I can't bank on him long term. So if you can get a 26 first, if you can pair a second with him and get a first, I'm kind of cashing out. And I know that might seem like a cop out, but like he did look phenomenal.
I would definitely do that. If you look at J.K. Dobbins previously, like rookie year J.K. Dobbins before injury, that dude was so explosive. He was breaking away runs. Like you weren't chasing him down. Now, like he looked great, but damn, did he look slow. And I think that's fine. But if he's going to be slow like that, and in an offense that's likely going to be a lower scoring offense with wide receivers that can't catch a cold out in a doctor's office, I think it's going to be kind of worrisome just for like touchdown volume for him. But they're going to pound that rock. They built up that offensive line a little bit. Still looked rusty, but those tackles looked phenomenal. Mm-hmm. If I could turn J.K. Dobbins into Alvin Kamara, if I could turn him into Joe Mixon, if I could turn him into a James Conner plus, I'm doing it 10 times out of 10 if I'm a contender. Well, if I'm a rebuilder, I'm either flipping him with a second for a first, or I'm just seeing what I can get for him. Otherwise, I'm holding him because he did look great. I hope he does great.
That 61-yard run. Yeah, he broke out.
He's a fun player. He looked good. Like he was breaking tackles. He was making people miss. Like he looked like old J.K. Dobbins with a little less juice. So I'd like to see him get that wind back and break into that burst again, which would be really cool to see. But he looked good, man.
Dude, the running backs in general, all of our guys. Kenneth Walker looked fantastic. 20 carries, 108 yards, and a touchdown. We talked about you. I know you want to talk about Alvin Kamara. So Alvin Kamara. Any rumor of him, I had all these people say, his usage is going to dip with the new OC, and his talent's overblown. 15 carries, 15 for 83 and a touchdown, 5 receptions, 27 more. Honestly, just put him in your lineup. Like, just don't even question it anymore. Alvin Kamara is your PPR GOAT. Like, he is just up there. And this is where we talked about in the offseason, and man, I'm putting a post out today. People don't believe it, but 3 different scenarios where I got Saquon Barkley in a first for Christian McCaffrey. I think we're in this area where I'm so scared of Christian McCaffrey. If I can get a mid-first plus Kamara for Christian McCaffrey, I'm going to do it. I want Alvin Kamara everywhere I can get him, because he's going to catch upwards of 80 balls again. And he had 5 receptions in a game that was a blowout, like an absolute blowout. The other thing is Jameson Williams had 13 carries. That's going to be Kendre Miller soon. If you can get Kendre Miller on your IR and you can buy him cheap, do it. But Alvin Kamara, man, would you make that deal? If you knew it was the 105, you get Alvin Kamara and the 105 for Christian McCaffrey, would you do it?
Smash.
Yeah. Because I like, for me, as long as it's inside 107, because I'm really digging into the 25 class. As long as it's inside the 107, I'm going to do it. So if I can get a mid first, not a late first, but if I can get a mid first, just do it. Because McCaffrey is a ticking time bomb right now.
One thing that I really want to highlight too in that game, because I watched every Texans game snap, I watched every Lions game snap, and I watched every Commanders game snap for my guy Austin, and I watched every Saints game snap. So I was watching all those games, watching the full games while having Red Zone cooking in the background. One thing I noticed in that Saints game was it was designed passes to Alvin Kamara. Mm-hmm. He wasn't even getting as much organic just dump offs. It was like designed plays. Kubiak's a genius. He played with McCaffrey. He was the passing game coordinator for the 49ers. He hyped up Alvin Kamara a lot. The running back coach over there used to be the Chargers running back coach. He worked with Austin Eckler. Mm-hmm. He hyped up Alvin Kamara a lot in that type of aspect. He's going to be utilized.
That opened everything up.
Carr was finally taking deep shots again. Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed were making plays. Chris Olave, 3 points. Rashid Shaheed, they were just stretching. Chris Olave was operating as a field stretcher, but I loved to see Alvin. Like they had a drive where they were winning by a lot. Alvin Kamara didn't really even need to play anymore, and they were within the 20-yard line. Screen to Kamara, gets down to the 5, scores. Mm-hmm. Okay, flag, comes back him up 15 yards. Kamara, he scores. I was like, I haven't seen this since Sean Payton. So I was freaking jumping up and down. Like, this is the usage I've been waiting for. Like, no Taysom Hill, no Jamal Williams. Like, Kamara is the guy in the red zone. And if you don't see that, New Orleans, fire Dennis Allen, figure it out. Clint Kubiak is the head coach. Like, you got to use your best players in the red zone. I can't stress that enough. And they used it, and it paid off for them. So that was a good Saints win.
The cheaper version that I know you don't love him, but I do, is Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, crazy efficient. 14
He's always
carries,
like this.
94 yards, 6.7 yards per carry, 2 targets, 15 yards, another touchdown. Expect 15-plus touches. And I think Sam Darnold, like let's just get this out of the way, could be the Baker Mayfield of 2024. Just be efficient, get enough done. But I don't think he's going to, Jefferson got his. Aaron Jones is going to be the focal point of this offense because they're not going to have Darnold stretch the field yet. And I think Aaron Jones is a really nice buy low. Also, James Conner type things, right? A lot of people were starting to really just say, hey, it's going to be Trey Benson. And when Trey Benson does take over, he's not going to give it back because it's going to have to come by injury. But James Conner, 19 fantasy points, another 100-plus total between passing and receiving. And, man, these unders, like these over-unders were just free money, honestly, when it came to James Conner, Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon. The line on all of them was 65 rushing yards. You know what I mean? There's a lot of way to make sure you can make some money there. But James Conner looked fantastic. 2 running back situations, and I know we're getting a little long here, but we got Tyler Oster is asking the opinion on the Denver backfield. I also want to talk about the Jaguars backfield. So a lot of people are taking victory laps on the Broncos backfield, but I mean, Jaleel McLaughlin and Javonte Williams both had 2.8 yards per carry. Trash. That's abysmal. Jaleel McLaughlin caught 5 passes for 1 yard. So, this offense, I want
nothing. Broncos players. I've been saying this all offseason. It's Audric Estime or bust. Estime
has 2 carries for 14 yards. Sutton I've never seen a guy have 12 targets and put up 30 yards. That's what we're going to see a lot of.
Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean,
that's the most Alvin Kamara stat line right there last year.
I still believe in Javonte Williams, but I'm not. Both of them, I think, are going to catch a ton of passes, but it's going to be dump offs. It's not going to be design plays like Alvin Kamara. It's going to take some time for this backfield.
I have 2 things for everybody. Fade Broncos' entire offense and fade the Giants' entire offense. Besides, Malik Neighbors will probably turn it up soon. But, come on. Those 2 offenses are absolutely abysmal. The teams are trash. You don't want anything to do with mid players on bad offenses. Malik Neighbors is the only exception because he's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
He'll probably make it work.
Wan'Dale Robinson had 12 targets for a 29% or 32% target share. That's not going to happen. Malik Neighbors, 5 catches, 66 yards. That's the start that we wish Marvin Harrison would have had. Trust both of them. Put them in your lineup. Not a big deal.
Let's talk about that real quick, Dad, before we hang up. Marvin Harrison Jr., Chris Olave, and Drake London. Talk about it. Because those were the guys going in that late first to early second range of redrafts.
So in redraft, I didn't touch any of them.
I didn't touch any of them.
Because you were giving up, in that area, you were giving up running backs that are
Saquon,
going to win
JT.
leagues. And you're going to exactly. You're giving up way too much. In Dynasty, I'm not giving up on him. I mean, Kirk Cousins was extremely mediocre, which is surprising.
There's still elite talents in Dynasty.
Derek Carr was really good, so I think there was a lot more to like about what Chris Olave could do. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be fine. You know, if he catches that 50-yard touchdown pass that he should have, like if Kyler looks his way, then you're talking about, okay, he's fine. Not a big deal. And you're going to put him in your lineup. I lost one of my matchups because of Marvin Harrison Jr. started over I don't even remember who I put him over someone random. I think, and it was just happened. But the other one that has me a little bit worried is, Tank Bigsby got his in there. 12 for 73, where Etienne went 12 for 44. Got the touchdown, but had a horrible fumble that literally cost him the game. And they almost did a role reversal. If you look at the stat line and say, hey, you know what? Etienne went 12 for 73 and didn't fumble the ball. And you say Bigsby went 12 for 44 with a fumble. You'd be like, well, that makes sense. But I'm not panicking. If I can buy Travis Etienne on the cheap, I will.
It was the thing with Travis Etienne is his next 4 games are strong matchups. He's got the Browns D next week, Buffalo next week, and Houston next week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a guy that was absolutely phenomenal last year. He was a top 3 running back. He was a workhorse guy. Tank Bigsby was literally couldn't play. Like, he was fumbling every time he played. It's fine that Tank Bigsby can make himself a role. If it's like a 70-30 split, it's still fine. Because I think Travis Etienne's going to get the valuable touches. They still view him as one of their most dynamic playmakers. In the receiving game, there was a couple designed passes for him. That arrow route that he scored in the preseason with, they tried down in the red zone. He caught it. He got tackled down at the 5. He should have scored 2 touchdowns. Like, they're still utilizing him in that red zone primarily because, like I said, you use your best players in the red zone. So I'd say a good thing if Tank Bigsby can be an 8 to 12 touch guy on that like just in the ground game. But non-biased me. Pick up Tank Bigsby everywhere because if Travis Etienne goes down, he's going to be really good. Like, he's going to be a guy that can be at least an RB2. Like, so I think you could look at it both ways, but Travis Etienne, not worried yet. I think he's still super talented. I think he's one of the best backs in the league. I just hate him on the Jaguars. I would do anything to get him off the damn Jaguars. I don't like Press Taylor and how he runs his offense. Trevor Lawrence is just an absolute ticking time bomb, even though that throw to Brian Thomas Jr. was phenomenal. And then I just can't stand their head coach.
Brian Thomas,
Stan Peterson.
So many different things to cover, but we just wanted to get out here, get some thoughts.
We got to talk Etienne and Saquon Barkley before we leave. We have to, Dad. We have to.
We got multiple shows coming up. Devon Etienne, unfortunately, did suffer that hamstring injury, but dude, if he's healthy, he's going to be the RB1 overall. And Saquon's in that same conversation.
Yeah.
Like, you believe all these narratives about the tush push, right? But then Jalen Hurts is like, you know what?
They can't do it anymore.
Maybe DeAndre Swift wasn't as good as what we thought last year. Maybe, the Jason Kelsey leads more into the tush push as possible. But if Saquon Barkley's going to be the goal line guy, that's what I was saying before is I can't tell you how many times I got Saquon Barkley on the cheap. Last year I was getting him for late first because he's with the Giants. And this year is tearing down off of Christian McCaffrey. Saquon, as long as he's healthy, is top 5. So is Devon Etienne.
He's going to lead the league. Both of them can lead the league in touchdowns. Like, they have probably, other than CMC and maybe Breece Hall, they have the best odds in my opinion.
Etienne and Mostert both got hurt at the end of their game. So Jalen Wright, I think we're going to see him this week, and I think you're going to see just sheer explosiveness of league-winning potential there as well. So, I mean, dude, it's an exciting time. I can't wait to keep digging further. 2 guys signed up for the Patreon during this YouTube show, so I love that. Make sure you guys check that out because Snook and I, we are grinding like crazy to give you the best content. In game, I updated my dynasty rankings of my top 48 quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends during the game.
I'm going to do the same today. I don't like to be overreactionary, but I think a little bit of updates that confirms what we thought. What we didn't think, because I'm wrong a lot of the times too.
I mean,
I like to highlight that as well.
I think we need to talk about that too. It's like when you get into it, I mean, not updating Rashee Rice is just foolish. You know what I mean? Not updating what you see on the field for certain players. Like where you see Anthony Richardson, okay, it's confirmed, it's on there. You know what I mean? Justin Fields gets a start. Yeah, you can't not move him up. Like, he's going to be a rock solid QB2 who held on to the ball for once in his life, still ran, didn't fumble, didn't have a turnover, and they win. So, love this. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process.
Boom.
I know that was a lot of random, but like, dude, that was